I was expecting Mystics to pretty much go undefeated all season. How good that we got that fixture quite early on in the league.
That is what we're going to see in this competition. Surprise results. We're going to see upsets.
They left the same 7 out on court for the whole game, which I think is interesting. They've obviously found that lineup that works.
She leads the intercepts. Imagine Georgia working with a Jane Watson, a Kartenberger, or a Kelly Jackson.
One of the best, if not the best, mid-quarter in the world in terms of that versatility that she offers.
She just plays like an Australian. She has an Australian mentality.
In that game against the Mystics, they just showed unbelievable levels of grit and determination after 11-goal deficit. That is astonishing.
Seeing Paris finally utilised in the defensive circle, that's unlocked just a heap more potential for the tactics. She plays well above her height and she's an absolute beast.
She's been really thriving back at tactics. It's almost like she's got a new lease of life.
No mai ki te hōtaka o te neti poro Kiwi. I'm Bridget Tunnicliffe. Welcome to the Kiwi Netball Show. We're at the quarter point of the ANZ Premiership and it was an action-packed round 4, so a good time to talk about what's unfolding. The Pulse are at the top of the table after 4 wins, the same as the Tactics, but the Pulse have a superior goal percentage. The Mystics are third after 2 back-to-back losses. The Magic are fourth and the Stars and Steel are at the bottom of the table. Joining me on the chat this week is former New Zealand men's coach Dion Whetu and Lucy Pollock, who is one half of the Quarter Time podcast. Lucy has moved to New Zealand from England and has immersed herself in netball in New Zealand on a few different levels. Welcome, Lucy. Are you actually playing? Have you joined a team?
I have, yes. We had our first game last week. I was actually made the captain, which I was very surprised about, but it was, really good fun. And you're exactly right about me being immersed in netball life. I don't think I could be any more involved if I tried at this point.
How have you found the netball scene at the grassroots level in New Zealand?
Oh, it's actually really different to in the UK. I think just because of the netball centre structure. So we don't really have netball centres in the UK. All the netball's kind of just played in small venues, usually shared with tennis courts, things like that. And I think what I was most struck by, particularly in Auckland, is just the scale of the competitions and how many people are participating, on a weekly basis. I think it's really slick operation. It's really well run. And it's just, it's an amazing thing to be a part of.
Good to hear. Okay, where shall we start? There's quite a lot to talk about. Well, let's go to the Mystics. On the weekend, the Pulse pulled off an extraordinary turnaround, really. I think they were trailing by 11 at halftime. They somehow pulled off the win against the Mystics in Auckland. Of course, Mystics without Grace Wecke for that game. Dion, the whole can they win without Grace? I feel like that's a narrative that's hanging over them, and mentally it must be quite difficult for them the longer it goes on.
That first half, they were amazing, and Toiava was immense in that first half of that game. I know I knock her around a little bit, but I got to give her flowers for the first half of that game. She was fantastic, and so was the attacking, right? Because obviously that's where they're missing their linchpin at the moment. I'm just wondering if that workload sort of came to bite them a little bit and coming into that second half. I know the Pulse are the masters of adjusting, and they will come out that first half, Mystics by 11, and then the Pulse in the third were one up by 7, and then they just won the last quarter by 9. So it speaks volumes, right?
Yeah, Lucy, I thought Phil DeVuy and Hannah Glenn were brilliant in that first half, but I guess they're not used to having to do that across 60 minutes. What do you make of the Mystics this year? I feel like we actually haven't seen them get out of third or fourth gear yet. I think they've got a lot more to give.
Yeah, I would possibly agree with you on that. And I mean, you can't replace Grace, really. She is one of the best tutors in the world for a reason. But I do actually think Hannah Glenn has some real promise in the attacking end. I mean, she was 25 from 28 against Pulse. And, those long arms of Kelly Jackson are something to look at. But I would argue potentially that Grace coming back in the short term could actually turn out to be a good thing for the Mystics. If Grace has a couple of weeks out, they really just gel those other combinations and figure out and prove to themselves that they can win without her, then it will actually strengthen them in the long term.
Yeah, I agree. And I guess the way most of the teams are set up in New Zealand, and most teams only have 10, maybe 11 players in their teams. And when you think about the salary cap, teams can't really afford to have two massive strike shooters, can they? They'll have someone like a Grace Wicke or Alia Dunn or a George Fisher, and then they build around that. We just can't afford to have two strike shooters in one team. And if you're that good, you're probably going to be poached by another team anyway. You're not going to be the one that wants to sit on the bench. What about the Mystics defensive end? Dion tracking pretty well there with Phoenix Karaka and the two youngsters, Catherine Hall and Kara Stithe. And I think Michaela Sokolic-Beatson is having a great season so far as well.
She's leading well. I watched that interesting interview with her. She's just doing a lot of work to try and find her own leadership style, which is really cool to see her not only just return to top class netball and playing really well, but also, take on a leadership role. I really like the interchange between the two youngsters, with Phoenix leading them from the front. Yeah, they're pretty blessed down that defensive end, having that ability, particularly with the height of the two youngies as well. And then Phoenix is just some of those standing intercepts she took they were pretty cool.
Let's move to the Stars. Unfortunately, no wins yet, but they have got 3 bonus points, so they are close. And I really do feel like they've been playing really great netball in large parts of the games as well. Lucy, what have you made of the Stars so far? We've seen Maya Wilson at goal shoot and goal attack doing a really good job, and they are without shooter Amarangi Malisala, who is getting over an ankle injury at the moment. So they are sort of working with a young shooting end as well.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think Summer Temu has been a revelation. I mean, she shot 100% on debut against the Tactics, which is incredible. Clearly, Amorangi is a huge out, given, she's a silver fern. She has all that creativity and playmaking ability. But I think I've been really impressed with the other shooters and particularly across the court for the Stars, what those young players are bringing and that kind of excitement factor that they can contribute to the side as well.
Yeah, actually, I've really liked Holly May, though, when she's come on as a training partner, and she's been great. I have been a bit surprised that we haven't seen more of Rani Samuson. Dion, defensively, so much tenacity, right? Kate Burley, Holly Fowler, they've both been having good seasons so far.
Yeah, they're fighting hard, and I think the great thing about those two is they play very similar, so they can. I don't think if they're playing sides or base and top, you don't lose anything from either of them. They've both got great closing speed. They're both very athletic. They've both got good hops. Yeah, they'll form a really, really nice combination.
Dion, I remember when we did the preview episode, you said of all the players out of the Stars, you were most interested in seeing how Maya Wilson went, and she's actually playing quite a lot at goal attack, isn't she? And she's taking on a massive load. What have you made of Wilson?
Yeah, and I think what a difference a break makes. She had that break towards the end of last year, and that's I think I alluded to the fact that it'd be interesting to see just her come back and how refreshed she is, and she looks like she's gliding, she's guiding, and she just looks strong and she looks fit.
Let's go to the Magic. They nearly pulled off the third comeback in 3 games of the round just gone, but the unbeaten Tactics hung on 54-53 in Hamilton Monday night. But Lucy, I felt that was probably the Magic's best performance so far.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. 100% agree with that. And what an amazing game. That's just exactly what we want every game to be, just down to the wire. And I believe they left the same 7 out on court for the whole game, which I think is interesting. They've obviously found that lineup that works and everyone just seemed quite settled and accountable for their own role. I love Amelia Ann and Savia Tui. I mean, Savia Tui is awesome anyway, just because she's always smiling, which is very inspiring. And I just love how silky smooth they are in the attacking line for Magic. It's been really awesome to watch this season.
Yeah, Amelia Ann was amazing on Monday night. And Dion, it felt like the big improvement for them was the connection between their midcourt and their shooters.
Yeah, it looks nice. I think the one thing I've been impressed with the most with the Magic is their team defense. I really, I think for me, probably one of the top team defenses in the league at the moment, and it's holding them in good stead. Down the attacking end, I mean, Coach Xavier for a couple of years when she was younger, with Meals out the front of her, and obviously doing a lot of work with her off the court as well. She's just thriving and loving seeing it. But Amelia Ann's just class. She's the total package, and they're lucky to have her.
Yeah, totally. I have absolutely loved what Georgia Takarangi has been doing this year. She leads the intercepts, 14. The next is Kelly Jackson on 8. It's funny how people go on about Georgia not being that tall, but she's taller than Jane Watson. Like, Georgia Takarangi is 183 centimetres, Jane Watson's 181, and I definitely think her strength is in the circle rather than at wing defence. But I feel she could thrive more at another franchise. Imagine Georgia working with a Jane Watson, a Kartenberger, or a Kelly Jackson. I don't know if she's at the best franchise to advance her game. Okay, let's go to the Pulse, top of the table. The victory against the Mystics on the weekend happened without Maddie Gordon, and unfortunately it's been confirmed that she could be out for up to 12 weeks. The franchise will be hoping that she might be back for the business end of the competition. Lucy, how much of a loss is Maddie going to be?
Oh, I mean, huge. She's a world-class player. Probably, I would say, one of the best, if not one, the best mid-courter in the world in terms of that versatility that she offers. And she's just in prime form at the moment. Really impressed by her for what I've seen up until that injury. Will they miss her? I mean, obviously they brought in Claire Kirsten, which was interesting to see her called out of retirement for this game. I guess it's that question, isn't it, of, relying on the experience of Claire to dig themselves out of a hole and hopefully keep themselves in a good position for Maddie's return. But I mean, in that game against the Mystics, they just showed unbelievable levels of grit and determination to bring themselves back in after, I think you said it was 11 goal deficit. That is astonishing, and that speaks to a really good culture and some exciting things within the camp that we should hope to see for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and the Pulse also have been missing Tiana Matuaro as well, who's coming back from a foot injury. But Dion, how good has Kiana Williams been? I mean, the Pulse are lucky to have a genuine third shooting option.
Yeah, as we all know, one of the Pulse's strengths is recruitment. Kiana's been fantastic. I think Tiana's return might be timely. I just noticed Kiana and Tiana, those names sound quite almost too similar, don't they? But Tiana's looks like she's carrying a couple of niggles, so her fitness, she's keeping her fitness up. She's a smart player, but Tiana's return might be timely. So I think probably the sooner they get her back, just so those two can share the load, the better.
Yeah. And Amelia Walmsley's been doing a fantastic job as the leader down there, really playing every single minute of every game, playing a lot at goal attack, a position she's not that familiar with, and she's giving it a great crack. What do you think of the defensive end, Lucy? I think the Pulse topped the stats when it comes to defense so far, and Paris Mason is quite exciting, and I love the way she just hiffs the ball 3/4 of the way down the court to the shooter.
Yeah, I mean, that's always so amazing to watch, isn't it? And I'm really loving that combination with Kelly Jackson as well. I think Kelly just provides that real steady presence at the back and allows Paris to really just get out there and get stuck in. And they're a pretty frightening defensive duo, I have to say, to come up against. I didn't know much about Paris kind of before this season, but I'm really liking what I'm seeing from her out on the court. And I think, they've just got that really strong defensive unit that goes all the way up, and they're making it really difficult for other teams this year.
Yeah, Netball New Zealand will be very keen to hold on to Paris Mason because she's also a great basketballer as well. She's played for New Zealand in basketball too. Okay, let's go to the tactics. I just want to go back around to round 3 when they were up in Auckland against the Mystics. I think the Mystics were up by 4 at half time. I've got to admit, I did not see that win from the Tactics coming. I thought for all money that the Mystics were just going to put their foot down even more in that second half, because in that first half, it was so much harder for the Tactics to get the ball to their shooter compared to the Mystics. I thought that the Tactics were going to run out of steam because they were working so hard. Dion, what did you make of that game with the Tactics beating the Mystics?
Yeah, I think the Tactics they've sort of gone up a gear, and I think having Tahuinga come into that management team with that that defensive coaching, that strong defensive coaching background. Ali Bird's looking really relaxed. I think this is what I took out of that game. That is what we're going to see in this competition going forward, right through to the end, is we're going to see surprise results. We're going to see upsets. We're going to see a lot of this happening over the next couple of rounds, and I'm here for it. I can't wait.
Same. Give me tight, unpredictable contests every day. I'm loving it. Lucy, Ali Bird, did you see her play over in the UK?
Yes, I did. Leeds didn't have such a good season from memory, I don't think, last year. And I definitely think there were times where, she struggled a little bit with some of those connections and getting used to playing in a new team and things like that. But I think she's been really thriving back at Tactics. And it's almost like she's got a new lease of life, really, out there on the court. And I think, yeah, it's definitely a massive bonus for them that they've got such a reliable target there to to be in that shooting position for the Tactics. And I agree, absolutely loved that game against the Mystics, and I was really, again, like you, Bridget, surprised to see that result. I was expecting Mystics to pretty much go undefeated all season, but I mean, how good that we got that that fixture quite early on in the league. Over in the UK, we are struggling with some really blowout scores at the moment, and I think it's just testament to the strength of the ANZ competition that you have very, very minimal score lines in terms of the deficit, and I think the bonus point element really helps teams to kind of strive towards the end of games as well. So yeah, love me a close game, and yeah, Tactics have been a bit of a wild card this season.
Yeah, and two of their younger players, Greer Sinclair and Paris Sokatui, Dion, both players are really making their mark this year, I feel.
I'm sitting here with a grin on my face. Those two, hands down, future. Greer, that switch to centre, and lovely to see her relaxed and willing to let that ball go. Caught the defense off guard, and I really enjoyed seeing Paris finally utilised in the defensive circle. Again, I coached Paris for a couple of years, and seeing her move into that defensive circle and then doing what she did in the last dying seconds of the game. Yeah, I think that's unlocked just a whole heap more potential for the Tactics, and can't wait to see how they utilise those two going forward.
Yeah, it's interesting because I guess when Paris got to this level, I guess the theory is that you're going to be you're too short now to play Goldie, you're too short for the circle, push you up to wing defence, which happens time and time again. But I feel like those decisions are being made a bit prematurely for some young players, and they let them prove themselves. If they're good enough in the defensive circle, they'll show you that.
Yep, 100%. And anyone that really knows Paris, like she plays well above her height, and she's an absolute beast, and she moves like the wind. And people were watching her closely in that game. They would just see that she is a definite option in that defensive circle.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to the Steel. I think the relief was palpable down in Invercargill on the weekend when they finally broke their unwanted record, notching up their first win in nearly 2 years and a thrilling extra time win over the Stars. What have you made of the Steel this year? And I guess let's talk about their shooting end with Grace Namana, a real mover and their very assertive player.
Yeah, I mean, she really impressed me in the Netball Super League for 7 stars last year, and I think you're totally right about the mover. She's just so crafty and really doesn't play like many other goal shooters that we've got in the league, in any league really, around the world. Averaging 31 goals a game so far this season at 88%. So she's not necessarily that same kind of high volume shooter, but wow, she's confident going to post. She's really accurate from distance as well. And she just always seems to be, popping up all over the show in different places and really providing good availability for those feeders. So yeah, I have to say, amazing for Steele to get that win. It was such an exciting game going into extra time. I don't think the players really knew what was going on a little bit when that was called, and that was all happening. But I mean, credit to their fans. They've had a long time without a win, and I think just the scenes of celebration were really awesome.
Yeah, and Dion, the impact of Shannon Saunders coming back as well, and not quite up to full games yet, but she's been huge, hasn't she?
Can't underestimate the impact that she will have had, not only just on the court, but off the court as well. Someone of her caliber and class. I'd say she's, even though she's not getting full games herself, she'll be really pushing those girls hard at the trainings as well. But yeah, I think it's showing. It showed in that game the other night. Just having her back, even if when she wasn't on the court, the team were just fighting. It was awesome.
Yeah, just mention the defensive end. I remember Tanisha Fafita 2 years ago when she was playing for the Steel before she took the 2 years sabbatical. I think she was topping the penalty count back then, contact and obstruction, and I just had a look today at the stats, and she's at the top of those stats again for total penalties by quite some distance. Dion, she's really going to need to tidy up that aspect of a game. If she can do that, she's going to play a hell of a lot better, isn't she?
Yeah, and she will, as you just alluded to. She's been away for a couple of years, and they will be zeroing in on that with her, and they'll be refining that penalty count with her, and sort of adjusting, how she can be more effective, maybe coming out, hunting the ball. She's a tall, strong young woman. She should probably just be looking at pinning or pushing her shooter out, or just pinning them on the base hard. So if she's up against a moving shooter, but they'll refine that, and I think we'll see her by the end of the season. That will change.
Okay, let's just talk about suspensions. We've had 4 rounds. On Monday night, Claire O'Brien, Magic player, became the 6th player to be suspended this season. It was the last minute of the game. Tactics defender Paris Lokatui made a heroic intercept, but had a heavy fall on her landing. It was totally Paris's ball. She got the front space. It was a fantastic intercept. But when I looked at the replay, I just thought, what could Claire O'Brien have done differently? I mean, she literally jumped to receive the pass that was intended for her, and she landed. Lucy, what are your thoughts on maybe that incident, or maybe if there are other incidents that you've been confused about?
Yeah, I think more generally in terms of the suspensions, whenever rule changes seem to happen, there's always a bit of teething issues, and it will kind of naturally take some time for umpires and players to adjust to the new rules, or the refreshed rules as they are. I do think that the changes are positive for the game, and they will help to eliminate some of the kind of tunneling and reckless challenges that were starting to creep in. But it's always going to take a bit of time for the umpires and players and coaches to all align on what they think is and isn't okay. And I think we're just kind of in that moment at the moment where lots of conversations need to keep happening. We need to, keep reviewing and looking at different instances, and, for umpires and the people, who are in the know, to kind of say, yes, that was the right call. No, that wasn't the right call after the event, in order to help those umpires in the future. And also kind of showing things to coaches. But don't forget, the TV cameras will see such a different thing to what the umpires will see. And depending on what's going on in front of the umpire, they might not be in the best position we hope that they are, but they might not be. And so it's always that split-second judgment. And I, as an umpire myself, I do understand that when they're trying to make these calls with the speed that the game is now, it's really, really difficult. And I personally would look for maybe some more support from the sideline for them, so that with these big calls and big challenges, if they're thinking of suspending a player, perhaps there's a process, but before they do that, that they have a consultation or a bit of a review or something. I know we don't want to slow the game down, but also would coaches prefer for those calls to be the right ones kind of in the first instance? It's a really tricky one, a very tricky can of worms to open, but I think over time, and especially over the rest of this season, it will get better.
Yeah, and maybe we just have to accept that there might be the odd injustice for for the overall good of the game, because I do think overall it's good for player safety. Dion, any thoughts on some of the suspensions you've seen?
I think that the one last night shouldn't have been a suspension, but there's definitely been some suspensions that I do agree with. But as Lucy says, that umpire's perspective, being down on the floor, you don't have that time and you don't have that grace. But it seems that the suspension rule's as popular as the short pass rule that we've just gotten rid of at the moment. But it's like anything, right? People will just get used to it. The viewing public will get used to it, and we'll just move on.
Okay. I asked you, just as a bit of a hypothetical fun exercise, if to put yourself in the shoes of a recruiter for the Suncorp Super Netball competition in Australia. I asked you to list the top 5 New Zealand players that you would target to play over in Australia. Lucy, have you got a list there?
I have got a list. My number 1 pick, which I think potentially could be a surprising one, is Peta Toiava. I basically worship the ground she walks on. I think she's absolutely awesome, and I would love to see her over in SSN working her magic. My second pick is Grace Nweke, unsurprisingly. I think, were she fully fit, and hopefully she does return back to the court soon, she would dominate over there. Not necessarily in the super shot period, but, as we've seen, Janelle Fowler has expanded her game to include the super shot, so you never know. And my third pick would be Mila Relu Buchanan. She's just such a gun, and I think she's looking really awesome this year. And, obviously Silver Fern and all of that experience that she would bring as well. I think, just her fitness and her creativity would be really awesome over in the Australian competition. And then probably quite boring and generic, I would say Jane Watson and Karen Berger are unmatched in their defensive abilities. And I think they're just so exciting. Even, they've been around the block. I think Jane celebrated her 150th, I think, recently, which was amazing. But I absolutely love watching both of them play, and particularly together in that combination, I think is really frightening.
Interesting. Okay, Dion, who have you got?
I've got Maddie Gordon. Just as first cab off the rank, I think she just plays like an Australian. She has an Australian mentality with everything that she does. I've got Grace, obviously, to Lucy's point, say no more really. I think Grace she would dominate over there. And then, so I'm thinking like up and coming younger players. I've got Bree Sinclair, again, for the same reasons that I've mentioned about Maddie. I've got Curran. And then I've finished with 3 players. I know you only asked 5, but
That's okay.
Like. So I've got Namana, Walmsley, and Ekanasio.
Really?
Out of the fifth pick. I just think Meals with her long accurate range shooting, in those tight times. Namana with her smarts, her ability to remain calm under pressure, and Walmsley just up and coming with like her development in the last 18 months has been phenomenal. And I'm really liking her movement out at goal attack. And obviously she offers great height as well, and she's got a nice shot on her.
Yeah, can't really argue with those. My list is Grace Nweke, Emilia Ekanasio, Karen Berger, Kate Heffernan, and the 5th one is a 3-way battle between Maddie Gordon, Michaela Sokolic-Beatson, and wildcard Paris Lokatui, because I think she's got that Aussie mentality as well.